Haiti, gun violence continues to increase. The death toll after a shooting rampage on Saturday rose to 10. In China, U.S. Secretary of Commerce Gina Raimondo arrived to work on preserving trade relations amid geopolitical tensions. And in Zimbabwe, Emerson Mnangagwa was re-elected for a second and final 5-year term following another troubled vote. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In Haiti, 10 protesters were killed amid gun violence in Saturday's shooting rampage. A march led by a Christian church in Canaan, a makeshift neighborhood on the outskirts of Port-au-Prince, was attacked by a gun that fired indiscriminately into the crowd. Protesters from the Église Piscine de Bethesda, some armed men with machetes and sticks, had gathered in an attempt to free the suburb from the influence of gangs. For the moment, government authorities, police, and religious associations in the Bouquet, in the north of Port-au-Prince, have not issued any official statement about this massacre. Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva participated in the 14th Conference for the Heads of States and Government from the Community of Portuguese-speaking countries, which is held in São Tomé and Príncipe. The Brazilian president traveled to the African country from Angola to attend the meeting. In a message published on his account on the social media X, Lula da Silva described this meeting as an important moment of strengthening an exchange among member countries. The CPLP is an organization that brings together Portuguese-speaking countries and Equatorial Guinea, a nation where Portuguese has been one of the official languages since 2010, along with Spanish and French. His goal is to deepen friendship and cooperation among its members in all fields. This is the last stop of his tour around countries of the continent before returning to Brazil. Colombia's Ministry of Finance approved the allocation of resources for the Youth in Peace social program. This is a plan with which the government of Gustavo Petro hopes to subsidize young people in vulnerable regions to steer them away from crime and delinquency. It is estimated that the program will benefit some 100,000 people between the ages of 14 and 28 with an investment of almost $300,000. The youngsters will receive a monthly stipend of at least $245, which will allow them to cover their basic needs and prevent them from being recruited to commit crime. Ecuadorians living abroad will have to vote again to elect their representative to the legislature after the failures of the telematic vote last Sunday, as decided by the National Electoral Council. In total, there are 6 seats in dispute, 2 for each of the special constituencies of Europe, Asia and Oceania, Latin America, the Caribbean, Africa, and Canada and the United States. The National Electoral Council stated that the elections abroad for presidential binomial president and vice president, the popular consultation on oil extraction in Yasuni, will not be repeated because although the votes were declared null, their figures do not affect the total results. The decision comes after the accusations of fraud due to the problems that occurred last August 20th. Brazil's government invests in upgrading and equipping military forces. The measure consists of doubling the size of its fighter fleet and financing projects of the local aeronautical manufacturer Embraer for aerial refueling planes. The amount of the investment is $10.8 billion for research, development, and acquisition of state-of-the-art tactical equipment. This is part of the Growth Acceleration Program with a view to equipping the armed forces with advanced technology, improving the country's defense capabilities, and guarding the country's borders. The government of Bolivia denounced as biased the country's economic performance evaluation made by U.S. agency Fitch Ratings. Fitch Ratings downgraded Bolivia's rating to -B after the decrease in its international reserve, which, according to the agency, weakened the country's economy. This approach was described as pessimistic by the Bolivian economic authorities, who explained in a statement that they did not take into account the progress in the implementation of projects initiated in previous stages and which will begin to generate income for the country. Likewise, the document states that Bolivia has been able to maintain price stability at a time of international volatility and uncertainty, and urges a responsible and balanced approach to the evaluation of the credit rating and the issuance of comments on this matter. Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. All the stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the south. In South Korea, citizens protested against the release of radioactive water from Japan's Fukushima power plant into the ocean. Demonstrators gathered in the special city of Seoul, the country's capital, to express their rejection against the release of treated radioactive wastewater by Japan into the sea and to criticize the South Korean government for supporting the release plan. Protesters urged the Japanese government to safely store radioactive water in tanks instead of releasing it into the Pacific Ocean. During these demonstrations, over 10 people were arrested, although the Japanese government and some scientists have insisted that these waters pose no risk to ecosystems. Several neighboring countries have expressed their displeasure with the measure.
Japan, once in the past, invaded the people and lands of the world, killing them with guns and knives for their own profit. Japan has started a Pacific war again by committing this environmental crime. If it is that safe, why won't Japan store it in their own land instead of releasing it into the world's well, the Pacific Ocean, and worrying everyone and harming their health? Diluting it won't make it disappear. Japan is a war criminal that has committed crimes against the world's environment.
Ban all Japanese imports so that we, South Koreans, can safely eat our own seafood.
France recorded a heat wave with record temperatures, the highest on the Mediterranean coast. The World Meteorological Organization reported that gas emissions are causing intense and long-lasting temperatures, especially in the European territory. It also highlighted that the heat record was set last Thursday. Conditions are already improving, and by the end of the week, no department in France declared a maximum red alert level for temperatures over 39 degrees Celsius. In France, the former socialist candidate for the Élysée in 2007, Ségolène Royal, announced on the weekend that she intends to head a united list of the left for the European elections in June 2024, with La France Insoumise, Jean-Luc Mélenchon's radical left party. Royal, who has distanced herself from the Socialist Party, intends to launch her own list for the European elections, along with the ecologists and communists. Presented her plans during the LFI summer university sessions in Châteauneuf-sur-Isère. In a press appearance, she explained that what she is looking for is a dynamic of convergence. Royal backed Mélenchon in the first round of the presidential election last year, rather than the socialist candidate, Paris Mayor Anne Hidalgo, who had the worst result in Paris history, with 1.75% of the vote. The head of the left-wing French En Bas party, Jean-Luc Mélenchon, says he approved the Ségolène Royal's initiative to unite left-wing parties for the next European elections.
It's a tremendous help. We, En Bas, are unionists. We are united. We are in favor of a joint list because we have a shared agenda for Europe. Ségolène Royal has shown boldness and courage, and she knows very well that she won't just get compliments, but I want to approve her initiative and her contribution to the battle.
On Saturday, the United Kingdom Rail, Maritime and Transport Union workers started a stage strike. The strike is a protest measure against stalled negotiations with the government to reach a negotiated settlement to the stalled dispute over jobs, wages and working conditions. Close to 20,000 workers attended the call of the union to demand that the government listen to the union's proposals. The union requested the fulfillment of commitments by the shipping company. The workers suggested a roadmap of protest actions until a negotiated agreement is reached. U.S. Secretary of Commerce Gina Raimondo is on an official visit in China to work on preserving trade relations amid geopolitical tensions. During her 4-day trip, Raimondo will visit the cities of Beijing and Shanghai, where she will meet with senior Chinese officials to discuss various issues of common interest, including U.S. restrictions on technology exports to China. Raimondo's visit, the third by a senior U.S. official in the past 2 months, comes at a time of rising tensions, especially over technology transfer. We now have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and much more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. A final short break, don't go away. Welcome back from the South. In Zimbabwe, President Emerson Mnangagwa was re-elected for a second and final 5-year term. Mnangagwa's victory meant the ZANU-PF party retained the governmental leadership it has held for all 43 years of Zimbabwe's history since the nation was renamed following independence from white minority rule in 1980. According to Zimbabwe's Electoral Commission, 80-year-old Mnangagwa won 52.6% of the votes in the midweek election, while 45-year-old main opposition leader Nelson Chamisa got 44%. Ahead of Saturday's announcement of the 2023 results, dozens of armed police with water cannons guarded the National Results Center, which was the scene of deadly violence after the previous election 5 years ago, when soldiers killed 6 people during protests over delays in announcing presidential election results.
And it's good that there is a new confidence which is beginning to be instilled among Zimbabweans by what the president has been doing, and that is reflected in the increased voter margin which he had this time from the previous one, and it also is reflected in the lower vote margin which has gone to his main opposition, and we hail the main opposition advocate Nelson Chamisa for a good show. Anyway, he didn't make it, but it was a good show. It shows that Zimbabweans are democratic. We also want to salute ZANU-PF, the party which won. It won absolute majority, which we need. We don't need anything other than absolute majority, because that's how you rule a country. Only on extraordinary things do you need a 2/3 majority.
Speaking from Harare on Sunday, Zimbabwe's main opposition leader Nelson Chamisa announced that he would contest the results. Chamisa said the elections fell far short of international guidelines and were plagued by unprecedented illegalities, irregularities, and encyclopedia opacity and forces of darkness.
There was therefore an illegality and criminality in the conduct of ZEC and all the polling officers and officials that were involved. The election process was fraught with unprecedented illegalities, irregularities, and encyclopedic opaqueness and forces of darkness, particularly FAS, which has become a spooky, ghosty, and shadowy organization that takes instructions from those spooky headquarters. The election process itself fell far short of the SADC guidelines on elections and international electoral guidelines.
Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel continues his agenda in Namibia. On Sunday, he participated as a guest of honor in the celebration of the Heroes' Day of that African nation. During his speech at the ceremony, the Cuban head of state thanked his Namibian counterpart, Hage Geingob, for inviting him as a special guest to this important commemoration that pays a well-deserved tribute to the heroes of Namibia, Angola, and Cuba, who, with the sacrifice of their lives, paved the way for the definitive independence of Namibia. Gengop, for his part, highlighted the bonds of friendship between both nations. Diaz-Canel received from the hands of his counterpart the honorary sash of the Order of the Most Ancient Welwitschia Mirabilis in first degree, the highest decoration granted by the African nation. On Saturday, tens of thousands of people rallied in Niamey, Niger in support of last month's coup, a day after the country's new military leaders gave the French ambassador to Niger 48 hours to leave the country. The Saini Conscious Stadium, the largest in Niger with a capacity of 30,000 seats, was two-thirds full and vuvuzelas could be heard. Flags of Niger, Algeria and Russia dotted the stands while acrobats painted in Niger's national colors put on a show in the center of the field. Attendees say they fully support the National Council for the Safeguarding of the Homeland, which seized power after overthrowing the government of President Mohamed Bazoum on July 26. The CNSP is focused on not stopping the fighting until the day when there are no more French soldiers in Niger.
The fight will not stop until the day there are no longer any French soldiers in Niger. We told them to leave our country to us, to leave, to let our country be. But it is you who will chase them away. To chase them away, don't go to the embassy. If the mobilization continues, they'll leave.
The French have been asked to leave, but they refused. We are going to defeat those plotting against our country. We're going to defeat them, and we're going to stamp them out. They are asking you to get ready. You mustn't sleep or doze off. They will leave. Victory to the people. It is the people of Niger who will decide what will become of this country. United we stand.
We have come to the end of this news briefing. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For Telesur English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.